The first time I realized my wife's family owned more than money was when the power came back on only for our block, and only after her uncle made a phone call. The second time was when he apologized to me for the inconvenience like it had been a personal favor. I married into the family without understanding the gravity of it. They were old money polite, never flashy, always present at fundraisers and school boards and zoning meetings. They called it being involved. We lived in a small town where everyone knew everyone, and somehow their last name was on everything without being obvious about it. I worked a normal job, paid my taxes, complained about potholes like everyone else. Then a winter storm knocked out power across the county. 3 days in, people were furious. Pipes froze. Businesses closed. Our street lit back up at dusk like a movie set, heaters humming while the rest of town stayed dark. I asked my wife what happened. She shrugged and said her uncle knew someone. That night, a county truck plowed our road first, skipping past stranded cars to clear our driveway. Neighbors stared. I felt sick. When I asked her uncle directly, he laughed and said, "We try to take care of our own." Then he added, almost kindly, "You're one of us now." That's when I started paying attention, and what I noticed next made my stomach drop. Once I started looking, it was everywhere. The water company's board was stacked with cousins. The local paper's editor married into the family years ago. The judge who'd ruled against my neighbor in a land dispute was a godfather to my wife's brother. I asked questions carefully, and every answer came wrapped in the same language: stability, tradition, community. When I pushed back, my wife asked me to stop making things weird. She said her family kept the town running when no one else wanted the responsibility. Then my coworker got arrested after posting online about corruption in the utilities department. The charges were dropped in a week, but he lost his job, his lease, and his reputation just as fast. He told me someone offered to smooth things out if he apologized publicly and deleted everything. I asked my wife if her family had anything to do with it. She went quiet and asked me why I cared so much. That night, I found an envelope slipped under our door. Inside was a copy of my coworker's original post, highlighted, with a note that said, "Problems spread when they aren't addressed early." I hadn't told anyone I knew him well. The implication settled in my chest like a weight. I realized then that the favors weren't random. They were conditional. I confronted my wife and told her I didn't want any part of it. She cried and said I didn't understand how fragile things were, how one scandal could unravel decades of careful work. She said her family didn't control people, they just removed obstacles. I asked what happened if I became an obstacle. The next morning, my car wouldn't start. The mechanic said the part was backordered indefinitely. My boss called to say my position was being eliminated due to budget cuts tied to a municipal contract that had just been reassigned. My wife begged me to apologize to her uncle and let things go back to normal. Instead, I packed a bag. Leaving wasn't dramatic. No threats. No shouting. Just doors quietly closing. Job applications vanished. Rentals fell through. The town I'd lived in for years suddenly had no room for me. I moved an hour away and started over smaller. My wife visits sometimes, torn between us. She says her family misses me. I believe her. They miss having control. I still think about that night the lights came back on just for us. Power looks comforting when it's warming your house. It's only terrifying once you realize it can turn off everywhere else.